शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथामृतं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नम ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome to the Sri Bhaktyaloka series. In the last two classes, we just had introduction to the importance of the book Bhaktyaloka, which is the essays written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur on the six faults and the six good qualities which one should practice in order to attain pure devotion. One should avoid and one should practice the do's and don'ts. Bhakti Pratikul Shatagun and Bhakti Anukul Shatagun based on Updeshamrit text 2 and text 3. And we also saw why it is so important uh, that we go deeper into each of these faults, because each of these faults can destroy devotion, or each of these good qualities can bestow pure devotion. So we saw that, and then yesterday we began with the discussion on Atyahar. We started with Atyahar partly, and yesterday we completed the whole discussion. How Atyahar has a deeper meaning. Atyahar means bhojan, but that is the principal meaning, but it also means to enjoy the ahar of the senses. And the living entity in the conditioned state has to enjoy this. But if it is enjoyed in the spirit of enjoyment, then there is a fault. He has a fault of atyahar. But it is done as the mercy of the Lord, then there is no fault. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes the principle of Yukta Vairagya. And that's how he establishes that how one should practice this Atyahar. So today we will see Prayas. Atyahara Prayasascha Prajalpo Niyamagra Jana Sangascha Laulyamcha Shadbir Bhaktir Vinashati. I was yesterday mentioning Atyahar leads to Prayas. There is a linear progression. So, because of the deep-rooted problem of Atyahar, which is a constitutional condition, it's a conditional urge, Vachogam, Manasavigam, but Atyahar is a constitutional urge. So, always one has to be careful. The tendency to do karma is uh, is very much deep rooted in the conditioned soul because sarve prakritir jayar gunair. But the tendency to perform devotional activities is natural, but because we are not daivim prakritim ashrita, we cannot exhibit that natural constitutional activity that is pure devotional service. So that's why Atyahar also leads to prayas. Now Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written a separate article on prayas and which are the different types of prayas one should avoid and which is the prayas one should endeavor for. So this is the whole summary of the article which I put here in the chart. So there are different types of prayas. There is bhoga prayas, which is gross enjoyment or subtle enjoyment. And too much endeavor in bhog prayas will destroy devotion. There is jnana prayas, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes different scriptural quotations how one should give up jnana prayas. Then there is karma prayas, and he quotes Dharma Sunishita Pumsan Vishwasena Katasuya Nodpad Ye Dari Ratim Shrama Eva Hi Shrama. It is Shrama. So he quotes this verse. And then there is Ashtanga Yoga Prayas done to attain mystic powers. And this is very subtle, the Vairagya Prayas, because it's very similar to Bhakti. So even that one should give up Vairagya Prayas and one should only endeavor for Bhakti Prayas, which is natural. Practice as much is favorable for cultivating devotional service. So in Bhakti Prayas, we should do this, but one should give up pride. And this he quotes from the Hari Bhakti Vilas. So all these other types of prayas, they are useless endeavor and should be given up, and Bhakti prayas should be done. So that's the summary of the whole article. Now we will go through each of these systematically and try to understand. Bhaktivinoda Thakur begins his article by a very profound statement. If prayas is not given up, devotion will never arise. So if you don't give up prayas, then devotion will never arise. The word prayas means endeavor, useless labor. Spiritual life is nothing other than pure devotion unto the Supreme Lord. Devotion cannot be defined by any symptoms other than full surrender and subordination unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Sarvadharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam raja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshishyami mahasucha. So Arjuna fighting the Kurukshetra battle is because it is the constitutional dharma of Arjuna to follow the desire of the Lord, and it is the Lord's desire. So he is not performing his varnashram dharma of Kshatriya dharma of fighting a dharma yuddha. So he is surrendered to the desire of the Lord and is subordinate to the desire of the Lord. So that is pure devotion. So the devotion cannot be defined by any symptoms other than full surrender and subordination unto the Supreme Lord. Full surrender and subordination are the natural, eternal, constitutional duties of the living entities. So there are something called as constitutional duties and there are conditional duties. The constitutional duties are the duties of the soul in relation to the Supreme Soul. The conditional duties are because of the conditioning of the gross and subtle body, and because we live in this world to maintain the body, maintain the family members, and our sabhava, conditioned nature, we have certain inclination. So these all constitute conditional activities. But the constitutional activities are nothing but full surrender and subordination, and that is the natural duty of the living entity. Jivera Swarupoy Krishnera Nitya Das. Therefore, only devotional service is the natural propensity or inherent occupation. So even Varnashram Dharma is not the natural propensity of the soul. It is a propensity of the subtle body, Svabhava. So only devotional service is the natural propensity. In one's inherent occupation, there is no need of prayas. Now, how many are mothers here? Let us see. How many are mothers here? Please raise your hands. There must be some mothers here. Reena Mataji, are you there?
Yes,
Yes.
Prabhuji.
Are you there?
Yes, yes. Hare Krishna Dandavat.
Yeah. You have children, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I want to know from you, like especially when children are very young and born, and all those activities, getting late up in the night, when the child is crying, feeding the child, all these activities, do you find there is endeavor which there is endeavor which you are? I'll have to 1 second.
Can't hear you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Can't hear you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Can't hear you, Prabhuji.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, I'm on mute. Okay. So it's natural for the mother to serve the child because it's a natural, propensity. So similarly, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is hearing here mentioning that it is the natural propensity, inherent occupation, and there is no need of prayas. Still, in the living entity's conditioned state, there is a need for a small amount of prayas in order to cultivate devotional service. Actually, in one inherent occupation, there is no need of prayas. But because the living entity is conditioned, there is a small amount of prayas required in order to cultivate devotional service. Except this little prayas, all other kinds of prayas are unfavorable for devotional service. Except this little prayas in the conditioned state to cultivate devotional service, all other kinds of prayas are unfavorable for devotional service. Please remember this. Now, after introducing the whole article, Bhaktivinoda Thakur goes into the different types of prayas which are unfavorable. Prayas is of two kinds, Gyan prayas, Karma prayas. In Gyan prayas, the feeling of oneness or Keval Advaita arises. This is also known as Sayuja, merging, or Brahma Nirvan, absorption in the Supreme. Brahma is the Supreme. Now, there are two kinds of prayas, Jnana prayas and Karma prayas. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is elaborating on Jnana prayas. Jnana prayas is hostile to spiritual life. This is explained in the Vedic literature, Manduk Upanishads, in the following words. Nayam atma pravachanena labhyo namedasana bahuna shutena yam evesha vrinoti tena labhyas tasesha atma vrinoti tanum swam. The Supreme Lord is not obtained by expert explanations. Nayam atma pravachanena labhyo, by vast intelligence, na medasa, or even by much hearing, na bahuna shrutena. He is obtained only by one whom he himself chooses. Yam evesha vrinoti tena labhyas. To such a person, he manifests his own form. Tasisha atma vrinoti tanum swam. So, just on Atma Pravachan lectures, na labhya. You cannot attain the Supreme Lord. So that's why Gyan Prayas is hostile to spirituality. This is the first quotation he gives. Therefore, devotion is the only way to attain the lotus feet of the Lord. Bhaktya tu ananya shakya. In the Gita, it is also mentioned in the 11th chapter. I am only attained by devotion. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahma says to Lord Krishna, Jnane prayasa udapasya namanti eva jivanti sanmukha haritam bhavadiya vartam sthane stita shrutigatam tanuvan manobhe ye prayasa jita ye prayaso jita jitopi asi tais trilokhyam. Lord Brahma said, O my Lord, a devotee who abandons the path of empiric philosophical speculation, jnane prayasa, aimed at merging in the existence of the Supreme, and engages himself in hearing your glories. Tane stita shrutigatam tanuvan manobir. Had activities from a bona fide sadhu or a saint who lives his honest life in the occupational engagement of his social life. Sthane sthita. Sthane sthita means situate wherever you are in your varnashram. Can conquer your sympathy and mercy even though you are ajit. Ye prayaso ajita jitopi. The unconquerable. So this is a very classic verse which mentions how one should give up Gyan Prayas and hear the glories of the Lord from the sadhus, and the Lord who is unconquerable becomes conquered by bhakti. In order to further clarify prayers, Lord Brahma says, Shreya Shritim Bhakti Mudasyate Vibho Klishyante Kevala Bodha Labdaye Teshamaso Kleshal Eva Shishyate Nanyadhyata Stula Tusavaghatinam. My dear Lord, devotional service unto you is the only auspicious path. Shreya Shritim Bhaktim Udasyate Vibhu. If one gives it up simply for speculative knowledge or understanding that these living beings are spirit souls and the material world is false, Klishyanti eva kevala bodha labde. He undergoes a great deal of trouble. Klesha eva shishyate. He only gains troublesome and inauspicious activities. His endeavors are like beating a husk that is already devoid of rice. One's labor becomes fruitless. Nanyat yata stula tushavaghatim. So the wheat husk or the rice husk, where the rice is taken and you keep on beating the husk, there is no rice which is going to come up. So similarly, the paths of Gyan Yoga are like only klesha. Only what you get is klesha. Further, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says the philosophy of monism does not originate in the absolute truth. It is only a demonic provision. Very heavy statement. Huh? It is a demonic provision. So Atma Gyan plus Ishwara Gyan leads to Ekatvam, merging into impersonal Brahman. And why it is considered as a demonic proposition or provision, it's Prabhupada explains, just like the mother gives birth to a child, and the child, when he comes out in this material world, experiences miseries. And being troubled by the miseries, he says to the mother, I don't want to be in this material world, please. I want to go back in your womb. So that's a very demonic proposition. So this merging is like that. And that's why he says it's a demonic provision. Glorification of the knowledge of one's relationship with the Lord is often heard. That knowledge is pure and spontaneous. There is no need of prayas. The knowledge given in the Chatur Shloki, the four main Bhagavatam verses, is Achintya Bheda Ved, inconceivable, simultaneously one and different. This knowledge is naturally dormant in the heart of the living entity. So the knowledge of oneness is not a natural propensity of the soul, but the knowledge of the simultaneous oneness and difference between the jiva and the Lord, and that is the natural dormant knowledge which is there in the heart of the living entity. The Lord is like the spiritual sun, and the living entities are like molecular particles of the sun's rays. The living entity cannot remain in his constitutional form without being subordinate to the Lord. Therefore, servitorship of the Lord is his constitutional duty. This is again Jivera Sarupoy Krishnera Nityadas. Actually, to merge in the impersonal Brahman is the highest form of sense gratification, because one wants to, moksha is like trying to become one with God. Cultivation of this constitutional duty is the nature of the living entity. This is the spontaneous, devoid of prayas dharma or duty of the living entity. Although in the conditioned state, this dharma is almost dormant and is awakened by sadhana or spiritual practice, still the prayas found in devotional practices is not like that found in the paths of karma and jnana. So the prayas for devotional service is a natural constitution of the soul. But in the conditioned state, it is almost dormant and it can be awakened by sadhana bhakti. But the prayas that is in the path of karma and jnana is quite different from the prayas in bhakti. It's quite different because this is not the natural tendency or the inherent nature of the soul. Love means to, uh, without ulterior motivations, which is selfless. Love means selfless. So if it is selfish, then, it's not pleasing to the heart of either, neither the lover nor the beloved. So that's the point. If one takes shelter of the holy name with some respect, then within a short time, the obstacles due to ignorance are removed and one's constitutional happiness is reawakened. So, where in the scriptures it is mentioned that if one takes shelter of the holy name with respect, forget about within a short time, avidya is destroyed. Anyone knows any verse or quotation where it is mentioned that if one takes to devotion, chanting the holy names with respect, then very soon ignorance is destroyed? Where it is mentioned? Anyone knows? Raise your hand. It's a very famous work, again connected to Bhaktyaloka only. Bhaktyaloka is two verses of the Updeshamrit, 2 and 3. So in the Updeshamrit also it is mentioned. Which verse is that? Anyone knows? Please raise your hands. No one knows. Such an important secret Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving. So this is the verse, text 7 of the Updeshamrit, text 7. Yeah, text 7. Syat Krishna Nama Charitadisitapya Vidya Pittopataptarasanasya Naro Chikano Kintvaadaratanu Kalu Saiva Jushta Swadvikramad Bhavati Tad Gada Moolahantri. So Kintu Adarat Anudinam. Then Swadvi Kramat Tad Gada Moola Hantri. The avidya is destroyed from the root. So this is exactly the same statement. So please chant the holy name with deep respect that the holy name is non-different from the Lord. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying within very short time, avidya is destroyed and one realizes one's constitutional happiness. If one gives up a place to Jnana Prayas, then he has to suffer more. Discussion. I hope the audio is clear. Yes. If one gives a place to Gyan Prayas, then he has to suffer more. And if Gyan Prayas is renounced in the association of devotees, then that is a devotional endeavor. So if a Gyani comes in the association of a devotee, then that Gyani is fortunate. Bahunam Janma Namante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyante Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sahamatma Sudarlabha. Then he becomes a real Mahatma. So to establish this, Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes, Bhagavad Gita 12.2 and 2 to 5. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Mayavesha Mano Ye Mam Nityayukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetas Te Me Yukta Tama Mata. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be the most perfect. So Arjuna's question in the first verse was, who is superior? One who worships their impersonal form, the Brahmopasakas, the worshippers of the All Spirit, or one who worship a personal form, the Sham Sundar form, or the two-handed form of Krishna. And Krishna gives his emphatic opinion here. Maya Vesha Mano Yemam Nitya Yukta Upasate. And Shraddhaya Paraya. That is transcendental faith. Same Yukta Tama Mata. They are the topmost. And then he speaks about those who worship the impersonal form. What is their sadhana? And ultimately, Yetu Aksharam Anirdesham Avyakta Paripasate Sarvatragam Achintyam Cha Kutastam Achalam Dhruvam Sanyamindriya Sarvatra Samabuddhaya Te Prapnuvanti Mameva Sarvabhuta Hiterata. But those who fully worship the unmanifested, which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed, and immovable. So these are the attributes of Brahman, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth. How? By controlling the various senses, by being equally disposed to everyone. Such persons engaged in the welfare of the Lord at last achieve me. Sarvabhuta hite. Te prapnuvanti mam eva sarvabhuta hite rata. So this is the absolute impersonal aksharam, anirdesham, avyakta, avyakta paripasati, sarvatragam, it's all pervading, achintyam, it is kutastha, achalam, Dhruvam, these are the attributes of Brahman. And then how do they practice their sadhana? By controlling their senses and being equally disposed. Sarva bhuta hiterata. They also attain me. But then Krishna says what? That this path is filled with klesha. Kleshodikaras tesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham dehavadbir avyapyate. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. Kleshadikaras tesham. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult. Avyakta hi gatir to come for those who are embodied. His Holiness Radha Govind Maharaj says that, we are persons and relationship means you have to have another person. Just like I have to have a relationship with the sky, the all pervading sky, how you are going to relate, becomes very difficult. It's a very abstract concept. So it becomes very dry and very troublesome for those who are embodied. Okay, so that's regarding Gyan Prayas. So, any questions on Gyan Prayas? Anything you have not understood? Any clarifications? Sorry, we had little interruptions twice because there was some urgent, important call to be attended. Yes, Nandini Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Guruji, Dhanavad Pranam. Guruji, can you give some examples for in a devotee's life for Gyan Prayas and Karma Prayas, which we like commonly we do and we practice it?
Generally, uh, devotees don't endeavor for Gyan Prayas. We'll come to that further again in the discussion. Gyan Prayas is, subscribing to those literatures which deal with Brahman, the Upanishads, or the Yoga Vaishishta philosophy. Uh, that kind of endeavor, studying the Upanishads, Brahman. So that devotees usually don't endeavor. But Karma Prayas, yes. For the devotees, it is Karma Prayas and especially Vairagya Prayas. Even Ashtanga Yoga Prayas devotees don't really endeavor, but there can be sometimes subtle endeavors even in that direction. Uh, that's why in the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, the definition of pure devotional service is Anyabhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadya Anavritam Karam Adi. So Gyan which leads to impersonal liberation. So it should not get covered. So karmadi refers to, adi refers to Ashtanga Yoga, even astrology, Ayurveda. When you start putting your endeavors more in that direction, then that can cover your bhakti. So that's why it is subtle. But generally, for devotees, there is tendency for karma prayas because we are conditioned, we are influenced by the modes, and there is vairagya prayas also, which we'll try to go in more detail. We are going to just now touch upon karma prayas. So, yes, Nandini Mataji, does that clarify your question?
Very well, Guruji. So Karma Prayas will come to know like later examples
Karma
further.
prayas, we are not yet started the discussion. When we
Hmm.
discuss that time, we will take it up in detail.
Guruji. Thank you, Guruji.
Okay. Yes, Devahuti Kapil Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
Prabhuji, you touched upon Ayurveda, right? Like, I just want to understand, like, how do we actually build faith in Ayurveda? If you see in the Western world, people actually, even devotees, they feel that, Ayurveda is not bona fide. So to add to this complication, I met my uncle in Hyderabad. So what he said that he had a friend who went to the Ayurvedic treatment, and they did all sort of analysis and everything, and they put him in a treatment, and exactly 1 week after the treatment he passed away. So this is kind of scaring. So how do we build that
No,
faith in Ayurveda?
okay. Yeah, I got your question. Basically, um, in today's world, Ayurveda more has become a luxury, and firstly, you have to get in touch with a very bona fide Vaidya. And today's, generation, their bodies don't respond to medicines because of too much of, chemicals and, the kind of lifestyle they lead, and many other factors are there. So firstly, we have to be in touch with a genuine Vaidya, who's again coming in the Guru Shish Parampara. The authenticity is very important, and that helps in building the faith. Now, secondly, we are not speaking about that here in our discussion. We are speaking about how even Ayurveda can cover. So I remember one brahmachari who had really serious health issues, and he was consulting many doctors and even many vaidyas for his health crisis. And he came across one of the vaidyas who really was very authentic and who had sadhana by his ayurvedic practices, and he was able to cure him. But he got so much influenced by him that he left his spiritual practices and took up the profession of a Ayurvedic doctor. He learned Ayurveda and started practicing Ayurveda. There's nothing wrong in it, but the point is that the influence of the faith in Ayurveda, Ayurveda is one of the most important principles for maintaining a healthy life, but it can cover your devotion to such an extent that you know, you take up that field itself as a means of your livelihood, which is also good. But for him to shift from a full-time practicing devotee to practicing Vaidya, I asked him, why did you do that? He said he was so much obliged to the doctor that, I said, I can return this back obligation by taking up this profession and uh, curing others, which is also noble. But the profession of a spiritual practitioner of curing others from the birth cycle of birth and death, the root cause of all diseases in the material existence, is a higher principle. So in that sense, we have to be a little careful, that again, there is a darshan. The darshan of Ayurveda is that we see, the body made of kapha, pitta, vayu. But the Shastra darshan is that, Pandita Samadarshana, that everyone is a spirit soul, Vidya Vinay Sampanya. So when you too much subscribe to the philosophy of Ayurveda, then what happens is, there is, you have this darshan of seeing everyone based on, the vision of, uh, based on Ayurveda darshan, that, the body is made of kapha, pitta, vayu. But when you have the Shastra darshan, then we see everyone as spirit soul and how to somehow connect them to Krishna. So that's how the difference is. So that's why one has to be a little careful, not that one's devotion gets covered, avrit, by adi, all this karma adi. So that's the point. Yes, Radha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, just in and that is pranam to you. Just in continuation with the same discussion which is going on. So the devotee who was a full-time spiritual engagement, he had the full-time spiritual engagement, as you said, took up to Ayurveda. But Prabhuji, he was a practicing devotee always. So his consciousness is always that Adding to it, he had just taken up a full-time, the grahasthas. What we have to take up some livelihood, right? Each one of us has to take up some livelihood to continue and support the family. In the same way, if he has taken Ayurveda, which is again a sattvic profession, rather than doing any other kind of business. So, is there any harm? Because his consciousness, number one, I think that his
No,
consciousness is
no,
good.
no, please understand. That's why I knew that this will come up. There is nothing harm in it as a profession to take for a means of livelihood. But the point, what I had in the discussion with him, that why did he leave the ashram? His main reason was that he felt so obliged to the doctor that I can return this obligation by taking full time this profession, and uh, so there was a compromise in his principles of
Correct,
taking
correct. I
first
get it. Means
priority for
intentions.
devotion
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to Ayurveda. So keeping that on the higher pedestal. So that is, that's a fine discretion which I'm, bringing out here. But
I got it. It is clear. Yeah.
any devotee who is practicing, be he a brahmachari or a grahastha, if he takes up to this profession for maintenance of his family and maintenance of his body, especially the sattvic kind of lifestyles, like the professions, and which are in harmony with Vedic principles, there's nothing like it, because they can bring others into Krishna consciousness. So my point was only keeping one branch of Veda, taking it on a higher pedestal compared to Shuddha Bhakti. So that subtle discrimination, that's what I wanted to bring out there. That's it. Is
Yeah,
it
yeah,
clear?
Prabhuji. Yeah, very much clear, Prabhuji. And Prabhuji, one single question here. So, how will we understand whether it was destined, or whether he has taken used his free will?
We cannot go into those details. Sometimes I have seen some cases where some devotees, when they have really health issues, serious health issues, uh, they can, they can get deeply affected, and sometimes you know, uh, they can compromise their devotional practices. So it happens, so that's a real challenge. So that's why it's very difficult to say, it varies from case to case. So there is no general principle we can, mention here.
Yeah, because we know a very close devotee who used to attend the program with us, always like weekly program. And
I'm not able to hear you very clearly.
when she was unwell, Pooji, when she was unwell, that time she had compromised a lot um till the way that she started eating eggs and all, just for her health. So that's why I'm asking, that wasn't it a thoda faith kam ho jana, or
Yeah, that's what the faith,
free will?
faith is shaken. Generally, astrology and Ayurveda, generally astrology, that can, at particular points in our life, there can be change in the path because of influence of that. So we have to be little careful, and that's why faith in Krishna is tested. That time we can say, and at that point, that change, is not exactly fate or destiny, but it is the conscious choices we make. And then everything is set right. But again, the point is that, we want to bring out again the general principle here is that, Bhakti Thakur is mentioning that ultimately what is, Bhakti Prayas.
Mhm.
That is, having this faith, full surrender to the Lord, and endeavoring in that direction. That is going to lead, to the perfection of life. So that is where his focus is. Okay. Okay, so we will not continue our discussion on karma prayas because that will be not completed now. So I will not take up it. We'll take it up tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll continue the discussion on karma prayas, and then there are others which Bhaktivinoda Thakur briefly also discusses, and that's how we'll complete the discussion on this article. So thank you very, very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki Jai, Shri Bhaktyaloka ki Jai. Hare Krishna.